So for today's case presentation and discussion, what we thought might be more interesting based on this topic was to have sort of real life scenarios that have happened in our PHAs, to kind of go through them very briefly, and then get the faculty, including CDC, OSHA's thoughts on, what could be improved or what could be done in addition. So with that, what we'll do is we'll just go one by one. And we'll start with Lancaster Housing Authority with Izzy. Rich, could you go to the next slide? Okay, so Izzy, if you would just take a couple minutes and just briefly summarize what your case presentation is about, that would be fabulous.
Sure. I was asked April 18th of this year to assist a housing manager to meet with the resident for her second smoking violation. I'm going to paraphrase here. I've never met this resident before since I'm new at this role. My observation during the meeting was the manager was correct in her messaging. She said all the right things, but her tone was not conducive to have an open dialogue with the resident. The outcome, the resident became agitated. The manager showed, it should be, I missed the word there, no compassion. And the resident became agitated and grudgingly agreed to not to smoke in the unit. So my follow-up after the meeting was over, it was evident that the resident was upset how the meeting ended. So I had several attempts to reach out to the resident. On April 26th, I met with the resident at her home. We had a good conversation about her two small children. I did not discuss at all the smoking violation. On May 13th, I met with the resident again at her home. Once again, we had a good conversation. During this visit, we did discuss the smoking violation. She informed me that she does smoke in her unit because both of her children, ages 7 and 4, are autistic, and she's overwhelmed with stress. She has no support system. Also, I want to add on there, she just relocated about a year or so ago from New York City. She has no family, no support here. She's basically here because she got housing here. My next steps, I reached out to a trusted friend and former school counselor who is now assisting the resident in getting the help that she needs with local agencies for the children, support for herself. I also reached out to a fellow neighbor who reached out and now babysits the kids to give the residents some quiet time, some stress-free time. The resident is still smoking. She's now being seen by her physician for stress, and she's now on the patch. She's been smoking for 3 years. And I want to add to this also, since she relocated, she has not found a local family doctor. So she actually drives 3 hours to New York City to see the family doctor that she's had since she was a small child. So my question is this: what more, if anything, could be said or done to help the client not feel overwhelmed and to encourage her not to smoke in the home?
All right, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just turn it over to the faculty. Laura, I don't know if you have any thoughts, if you wanted to kick it off to this topic.
Yeah, no, this is great. It's great. It sounds like a perfect case. So I won't chime in just yet, but I'll go ahead and open it up to either our CDC colleagues or Frank or Amy, Linda, anybody who'd like to chime in or have ideas on ways that Izzy can say more or help more in this circumstance.
Frank, I first of all would point out to her that smoking does not get rid of stress, and we've discussed that in some of the other trainings that we've done over the course of this project. So I would really talk about that in pretty frank terms. But I'd also point out to her that the fact that she's smoking is causing her more stress because she's being being hit with these violations. She's having to listen to all this stuff from other people, and just all these other issues. So it's actually adding to her stress. So I would, first of all, look at all of those issues. But I think the more important thing is to help her find other ways to deal with her stress. So start to strategize with her about, getting into some kind of exercise, walking even, just taking the kids out for a walk, doing deep breathing. Is there a meditation group or Pilates? There's a million things. Is there anything in her neighborhood she could go to? does she have any friends? You know, maybe because she's new in this area, she doesn't have any friends. So maybe like a support group for mothers with young children, where she could get to know some other people and at least have somebody else to talk to. So that would be my focus, is that find her some really good ways of dealing with stress.
Yeah, and this is Amy Scora from the University of Wisconsin, and I completely agree with that. Finding those healthier ways to cope with that stress, and that can in turn maybe help her find some friends, or maybe get involved with more of her neighbors, kind of building some of that support group around her. I think education on secondhand smoke is also very important. So how her smoking in the unit, or just even around her children, how that affects them, and how that can probably build on some stress too if they're having some extra health issues, asthma, ear infections, extra cavities, that sort of thing. So I think the education piece might be key, and can kind of help find out then what's important to her, that might get her thinking down the line in quitting as well. And I see that she is on the nicotine patch, so maybe conversations around that, how by using the patch she might be able to cut back on some of her smoking, and that could get her used to smoking less cigarettes throughout the day, or just in key contexts that she can cut out some cigarettes. So that could be within the unit that she's not smoking if she's using that patch. That can help with withdrawal, and again, get used to those medications, and might move her down that path to being more confident in quitting completely.
That's great. Thanks, Amy and Frank. And Izzy, I was curious, would your resident be open to finding care at Lancaster Health Center? Has that been, you guys tried that yet?
Just to touch base, she's very raw. She's very hard to open up.
Oh, she's far.
So I'm
Gotcha.
just trying to peel away the onion a little bit. It took me 2 visits to find out her kids were autistic. I'm just trying to open up the dialogue and try to fix what the manager with her showing no compassion, just trying to open up relationships. She knows nobody, she trusts no one. So I'm just trying to open up that and then lean her to the direction that Frank said and Amy said. But I think it's going to take a process.
Yeah, agreed. It sounds like you've made good progress in a short amount of time, so definitely. But yeah, that makes sense that she's not super close by. One other thought, and maybe Linda, I see you come after me, so maybe you're going to talk on this. I was just going to ask a question around the counseling part. So it sounds like she's on some nicotine replacement, but maybe missing that ongoing counseling to help in her cessation effort. So maybe just the phone number for the quit line to refer her there. So maybe Linda, maybe you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And Izzy, thanks for really describing her situation, because we don't always see that. You know, we see a person present who's ready to quit, or, you know, ready to talk about it. So that's really helpful. I think in this situation, you're really taking the right approach and looking for social support for her, and dealing with some of what she has in terms of stress. Like Frank and Amy, I was thinking also, if there's a group of mothers, you know, who might be models for her in terms of getting the kids out, and, you know, just helping her a bit by surrounding her with some support, that would be really great. And she might be, when she's ready, she might be a great candidate for quit lines, because she doesn't have to go anywhere. She could just call the number and talk to people, and quit lines can really offer some ways for her to you know, deal with stress in a more productive way, to be thinking about, you know, getting the kids out and exercising. And even though you know, her children have special needs, they may be able to offer some ideas for her that are a little bit different, but are supportive. And, you know, it's possible, if she trusts you and wants you there, it would be possible to do the call with you, if that's something that, you know, she would agree to, and didn't feel that there were privacy issues there. But I think you said she'd only been smoking 3 years. And I mean, you know, addiction is addiction, but it sounds like she's still very young and, you know, important for her to quit, and that the social support is going to be really so important to her. So I'm glad you're working with her one-on-one.
Well, if I could add, the reason I reached out to a friend who's a former school counselor, because she had autistic children as well. So she's connecting her with support that way. So she is getting counseling out of our scope, of course. So this former school counselor of mine has become like a mentor for her, and also helping her. And also, I just proposed yesterday when I came back from vacation to my manager if she become a volunteer in our office because she's unemployed. Right. So being here, which is a non-smoking environment, might also help her. Just taking little steps just to get her to know people, to know the city, to know what's out there, and then just peel away the onion to get to the core of the situation. Then we'll be able to help her, I think, in a better way. Yeah,
and you know, once she has that social support and the care and help she needs with her children, you know, just to remind you, and you've probably heard this before in some of the other echoes, that you know, when people have young children, when smokers have young children, it's really motivating to them to think about the health of those children. And Amy mentioned that, I think Frank mentioned that too, that secondhand smoke, and educating her a little bit about that, not to make her feel guilty, but, you know, as motivation to help her make a quit attempt and then maintain that quit attempt might be useful.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else from our other health centers or housing authorities have any thoughts or questions for Izzy? Okay, that's great. I would just say one thing, Izzy. It's incredible to hear your work on this. So when we think about this implementation of the HUD smoke-free rule, and we've talked about this, and people like in my world, when we think about it from a nationwide perspective and the implementation, and then the risk of eviction, right? Because people might be in violation, that could be a risk. But I just would say thank you for your really incredible efforts to spend time with this resident, help her, meet her where she's at, and really maintain her housing. So I don't know what to do. I wish I could get you a gift or something, but I think it's really, you know, just congratulations and a big thank you. And that, you know, really is inspiring even for me personally to say, like, how do we help people that are along our way? So I hope that inspired all the rest of you too. I know we're all doing incredible work and there's lots of need out there, but that was really, really cool to hear. So thank you. And then come back in a month or two after you continue working with her. We can have some more conversation around this patient or this client. I have these same patients, this person, and her efforts to quit smoking and have a great, healthy life.